David Slater's writing has appeared in the Master's Review, the Dead Mule School of Southern Literature, The Gravity of the Thing, and elsewhere. His first novel, Selling Sin at the Hoot Possum Auction, will be released next summer. A warm welcome for David Slater.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to read one quick story and get out of here. This story was published in the Master's Review. It's called Nut Junction. There's a place in southeast Missouri where nobody walks. It's too far from anywhere you want to be on foot, in an overgrown mess out by the big flood channel, so it's heaven for cottonmouths and copperheads and more than a couple rattlers, but that ain't why. County roads N, U, and T meet right by some of the best coon hunting land in the state, maybe in any state. A good hunter can walk in with a hollow and thick boots with a gun and 2 potato sacks and come home with hundreds of dollars in pelts, dinner for a month, and like as not a dozen arrowheads. If she's smart though, if she knows the area, she'll go a couple miles west or a couple miles north and come home with less money and less food and less of a story, for sure, but with her mind intact. I wasn't a good hunter, not since I got sick and husband material number 3 took off for space. But I had just about enough money for bullets and dog food, and I needed a lot more. Pelts were quick cash, and the woods up by Nut Junction were carpeted in coons and squirrels and rabbits, you name it. You could even sell possum, but God knows why, and not for much. I went hunting for money, so my dogs were trained to hunt coon. Me and the dogs went out for 11 nights in a row once, but didn't get anything, not even a rabbit. I was seriously living on tap water and oats, cheapest thing I could fill up on at 9 cents a pound. I was eyeing the dog food, I ain't lying. If any of them got sick, or if I got sicker, I was done. 12th night, we went right up to Nut Junction. I didn't give one shit about whatever people said. If I came out as messed up as those folks in the stories, I wouldn't care what happened to me anyway. I needed money, and I'd exhausted every other option. I guess people told those stories to keep everybody away from the area, like there was moonshine and pot back there that didn't appreciate visitors. If I made sure to watch myself, which I would, I figured anybody I came across would be all right with me picking up a coon or two. And if I hit a booby trap, I'd deal with it at the time. The dogs treed right away, about a quarter mile from where I was drinking coffee in the truck. Coffee was $2 a pound, but I justified it as a business expense. I got my rifle and went out after them. It was tough to find anything like a path to where they were, and I couldn't see it until I got right up to them. It was an old house, abandoned for who knows how long, years for sure. Broken windows and bullet holes, because everything looks like target practice to some assholes. The weeds around it were so thick you could hardly walk up to it, but the dogs were right up on the edge of the porch, so I had to fight my way through the tough grass to get to them. Tripped a couple times. When I got up there, Jill, the older one, jumped on me, and then went up under the floorboards to flush out the coon. She was the smartest dog I think I ever owned. It wasn't a minute before the coon came out in the light and started running, but the dogs cut off all his options, backed him up against the house. His eyes were white in my headlamp, carbide light because it's cheaper than batteries and bright as fuck. I leveled down on him, took my time to get the shot right because the dogs had him, but then I dropped my gun. This fellow on the porch had said, "Don't shoot my house." Scared me half to piss myself, I ain't lying. I dropped the rifle on Chester. Didn't hurt him, but he jumped and the dogs lost their focus and the coon got away. I figured it would be better to leave the rifle in the weeds than pick it up and scare this guy. I picked it up anyway when I got a look at him. He practically had half his face gone, like something took a big bite out of it and just ripped off the skin. He wasn't bleeding, but he was so badly wounded he should have been. He looked pissed off too, from what I could tell, with his expression with his face all messed up. He said, "Don't." You couldn't even aim it before he got you. Nodded over to one of the broken windows, and there was a fellow pointing a shotgun at me. He was bloated, gray, really gray in that light. I set down my rifle and put up my hands. Told him, "Jesus, don't kill me." I think of the first fella as Gaptooth, because where his cheek was gone, you could see his teeth. Gaptooth walked right up to me, just about arm's length. He said, "We couldn't kill you if we wanted to." The shotgun fellow put it down, and they both said I didn't have to keep my hands up. You could see behind the bloated guy there was a woman cooking bacon on a wood stove. I could have killed all 3 of them for bacon right then, after oats twice a day for almost a week. Lady cooking didn't have any flesh on her arm. Gaptooth said, "Come have some bacon?" I swear to God I could smell the bacon. Absolutely swear. But I knew it wasn't there. The other thing they have up by Nut Junction, in addition to really good coon hunting ground, is wild barley. In a wet area like that, when the dead stalks rot, they get a thing called ergot. It's a fungus that when you breathe it in causes hallucinations and makes your limbs hurt like crazy. I didn't know all that, but I knew they weren't real when I saw the lady with her arm bones showing. I must have kicked through some wild barley on my way up to the house. I knew I was seeing things and needed to get to a hospital or something, but I still talked to them. It's hard to explain, but it just didn't seem right not to. Gaptooth said I couldn't really have the bacon, but I should come in and have some. I went inside the house, even though it was half collapsed already and ready to come down all the way. The wood stove didn't stay in one place. It moved depending on how I was thinking about the woman. If I was thinking about her, she and the stove would be on my right, close enough to touch, but if I was talking to one of the others, she was cooking in the other room. We talked a minute, but it was just dumb stuff. Coons have a thick skull, so you have to shoot them in the eye or between the eyes. We talked about that. And how the dogs were good dogs, and I didn't mind paying more to feed them than I did to feed me. And how I probably should have asked this guy at the IGA to stop following me around, but I didn't notice until I was almost leaving, and it would have been rude. And I was still trying to figure out why he followed me in the first place, and I saw that he had the same face as Gaptooth except for the wound. I don't know if I was ever in the house, really, and I can't be sure there was a house because I've never been back to check. I think there was a house out there, and that everything else was a hallucination, except maybe the coon. It didn't talk to me or anything, so I bet it was probably real. I don't know if the fungus got to the dogs, but they followed me back to the truck, probably dreaming about coons coming back from the dead and hissing at them. When I got home, I was sore everywhere, and still seeing things like bugs and stuff that I knew wasn't real. Stayed in bed for 3 days, except when I went to town to sell the dogs and the rifle.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Backspace. Thank all the leaders.